more of a down shot point of view with a one-point perspective. And in this next set of layouts here, thumbnail sketches, we have this one, which is it's a form of what's called an over-the-shoulder shot, but it's a reverse over-the-shoulder shot in that we've got a control panel that's here strong in the foreground, and the actual seat itself where the character would be set up here. There's the hollow space in the seat up there for the character's head to appear. And so we'd just be seeing a portion of that and a little bit of their shoulder. We might see their hand in the foreground here, pressing some buttons or something like that. So in essence, it is an over-the-shoulder from the point of view of the environment here. You could consider this the body of the cockpit, and we're just looking over the edge of it, over the shoulder, to the actual character itself. And so that's sort of a reverse description of that type of a shot. This is actually a fairly pure one-point perspective. We can see that the cockpit is coming down, and the vanishing point is roughly about here, which is focusing in on the head of the character. And that's one of the things we have to understand about layout, is that the whole purpose of a layout within an animated cartoon is that it has to support and provide an environment for your characters to exist within. And so you want to set it up in as clear a way as possible, but understanding that when you do set up your perspective in a layout in the background, it has to complement the character, and it has to make the character read correctly within the scene. So the layout and the environment and the perspective are really secondary to whatever action is taking place within the scene. Now in this next one here, we're looking at a fairly elaborate pan background with a little bit of a warp perspective in it. And we can see if we start over here in this section with the captain's chair, so to speak, up on the pedestal up there, and we're looking at a slight upshot. The horizon line you can see is a line running right through here all the way across. And so we're starting off with this slight upshot. Maybe the captain is giving a command to go to warp whatever, and or proceed, with a battle exchange and fire all, missiles or whatever. So we start off here, and then we pan across to the character that is sitting in the foreground here in this control panel seat here, and their reaction to whatever is going on. Or conversely, you could flip the scene, and depending on the purposes that are being used within the context of the film, you could start off over here with your character in this seat, and they make some sort of a comment like, Captain, we're being attacked, or the aliens are decloaking directly in front of us, or alien vessel dead ahead. And then we pan back across to the captain, and even possibly track up and truck in on the captain's seat to reveal the captain reacting to whatever the character has said. So this type of a layout here, while it seems fairly complex, is relatively simple from a perspective point of view. It is a warp perspective, as I mentioned before. It starts off with a 2-point perspective in this area here, and you can see the little grid that I've placed on the circular pad that the seat is sitting on. We have a vanishing point that's over here to the horizon line, and another one that's somewhere around over here to that point. And the seat is radiating down to that point. And then when we get across to this point here, we're sort of shifting our natural perspective, because the vanishing point is going way out here on this side here. But when we get to this point in the cockpit, we're actually looking at a 1-point perspective, so we're cheating the perspective over here. And you can see the way I've got the lines on the ceiling and the floor are actually flaring up and away out of the field. That means that basically it's coming closer to us, number one, but it's also a sense that we're rotating the camera in its point of view, looking from one point of view, and then it's pivoting the camera around to show the character in this position here. So that's when we get away with a little bit of a warp perspective, by bending some of the lines within the environment. And we'll have more examples of this type of a thing in some of the other examples later on. Now this final one, which is the one that I'm actually using for the final cleanup version of the background, is a more traditional profile 1-point perspective layout. And we can see here that the seat is set up so that the vanishing point is somewhere roughly in and around there where that tick line is. That's usually the way I like to draw my horizon line, well, or my vanishing points, is I have a horizon line across here, and then wherever the vanishing point is, I'll put a little slash through it so that it's quite clear as opposed to a little fuzzy ball. You want to make sure that it's nice and clean in its descriptive of what it is you want it to be. So as an example, I'd have a horizon line that runs through here like this, and rather than doing a vanishing point that's like that, because that way I don't know if my vanishing point is over here on this side of the fuzzball or if it's over here on this side of the fuzzball. If I just put a slash line through there, then the intersection point is where my actual vanishing point would be. So it just makes it a little bit more clear. So in this one here, like I said, it's a one-point perspective profile view. Although it has this element over here on the side far enough off to the side that it does present a slight three-quarter front view of the character. We wouldn't be seeing the character necessarily straight on side view. We'd see slight front of the face. And then we also see the front face of the control panels over here because it's splitting apart and has the shared vanishing point that's right here. So it allows us to not only see the control panels in front of the character, but the front of the character on the opposite side as well. And in this one, you can see I've very lightly sketched, and with all these thumbnail sketches that you're looking at through the entire examples here, most of these took roughly about 10 minutes to draw. And I'm not saying that to try and brag or anything. It's just that they're very, very quick poses or quick sketches just to get the idea. Not a lot of detail, just something that describes what it is that I want to see within the entire scene. So in this instance here, you can see I've got a little bit of a grid here, or cross contour, to describe the shape of that form that's going around the edge there. Now if we take a look now at the final layout, you'll see here that the final version is now a lot more cleaned up. Obviously, there are a lot more details on it as well. You'll notice the introduction of the hand controls, the padding that's around the seat, a lot of the hoses and pipes and things like that that are coming from around the side. So you can see that there's quite a bit more detail taking place on the layout, and that's the whole idea, is that with your thumbnail sketches, you're basically taking the germ of the idea, the initial idea that you had in your brain, as we see with the one that we have here, and then we're translating that into the final version of what the layout is going to look like. So there will be additions to the environment. There will be things that are taken away, altered, and shifted around, etc., to meet the needs of what it is that you actually want to put into it. So with this one here, I've just had a little bit of fun with some of the wires hanging off the back end here, and some of the various shapes, and a little glass tube in the background there. Little dials and switches and buttons and things like that. So this is a fun layout to do. I really enjoyed this one, and of course with this type of a setup, there would be various ways of breaking it up. This is the single layer of the whole thing, but you could separate it out so that you had a star field in behind this area here of the sky, or the star field, outer space, and that would be panned through the scene as we remain static on this area here. And so everything else within the environment would actually be an overlay, or an overlay underlay, or an underlay, depending on how it relates to the character specifically. Now again, within layout terms, if the character was to be manipulating these control handle things here, then those would be on separate levels again, so that if the character was doing some sort of a shifting movement to control the pitch and yaw of the spaceship, they would be able to do that. And then there would be this arm of the chair would be on a separate level above, as well as the control panel here, probably cutting it right along this edge here. So this entire section right here, right around like that, down here, around, and then up into the arm and back over like this into this part here. That entire section would be a separate overlay element that would lay on top of the character level, so that way you wouldn't have to deal with a match line with the legs coming down here either. So that's the way that this layout has been done. You can see a lot of the contours are on here to describe the curvature and roundness of it. Same thing with these strapping pieces up in the ceiling here to describe how the top of the cockpit wraps around. Also adding little lines like this in here will describe perspective a little bit better. You give out a plane, and creating ellipses around tubes and the ends of tubes will also help to describe the roundness of those as well.